It's a monumental event within the history of Islam, for sure. What happens sometimes in the Seerah here, and I haven't figured out how to fix this problem in the way I tell the story, is that because of these battles and how important they were, they overtake the story of the Prophet ﷺ's life. What do I mean by this? I'm going to share this with you just so when you study Seerah, inshallah, on your own, or you're contemplating it, you have something to think about. Because Badr and Uhud and Khandaq and Hudaybiyah and Mu'tah and Khaybar and Fatah Makkah are so important, they were such important moments, that everything in between is forgotten. Like, it's not talked about. Like how he lived his life, alayhi salatu wasalam, outside of being on the battlefield, or outside of planning for saving the ummah, or writing a treaty, or corresponding with kings, or sending out an army, or being in the as a commander, or negotiating with people, which are the big stuff that you do as a politician. Most of us aren't going to be doing these stuff, which is the point I'm trying to make. Is that most of us are not like that. We're not going to be negotiating with the leaders of the world, or on the battlefield, or sending out armies, or corresponding with kings, or signing treaties of peace with others. It's just not going to be our story. So we end up sometimes missing out on learning about things regarding his own life, which is why I take a lot of time talking about the Hadith al-Ifk, for example. We spent maybe a month and a half talking about certain things that happened between Khandaq and Hudaybiyah, how they said, what they said about Sayyidah Aisha, for example. This is an example that's much more relevant to us because of the fact we can understand. We can understand this is a human problem. Someone says something about your family, hurt you deeply, cut you in a place where you can never really fully recover from. So I try to tell these stories of the battles in a way that keeps their relevance to you, like where you're still seeing that, okay, this is relevant to me in terms of this example or that example. However, I still feel that the proper way to do this is to speak about a lot of the events or the incidents of daily life that would happen between them during the Prophet ﷺ's life. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly when they're happening. Like when they narrate a narration for me, that the Prophet ﷺ, for example, went with Abu Hurairah when they got the milk, and he called upon all Ahl al-Suffah, and he had them all drink. I know this happened in Medina. I know this happened. I just don't know exactly when. I don't know if it happened before Khandaq, after it. No one in the hadith says it. We know it's a bit later because Abu Hurairah is a later Muslim. Like he accepted Islam maybe 4 years before the Prophet ﷺ passed away. So it's in these years, but I don't know exactly when. Like I don't know. I can't pinpoint it. And because the scholars of Seerah can't do that, they often don't include these stories in the books of Seerah. I'm just telling you from a perspective of studying this beautiful discipline of Islamic knowledge. We don't necessarily find them just because of the fact that we don't know exactly when they happened. You find these stories in the books of hadith, where all the narrations about the Prophet ﷺ are there. They're beautiful, but sometimes they don't get included into these larger encyclopedic reviews of his life ﷺ, because no one knows exactly where to insert them in an appropriate manner. One of the more recent books written in Arabic actually has a few chapters like that, where just in the midst of the story of within Medina time, it would just say, and talk about some aspects of family of the Prophet ﷺ, because his family struggles, or his family stories, or his stories regarding al-Suffah, or stories regarding his friends or his friendships, or how he dealt with, and that's nice. I like the books that include that because it gives me something to work with. Versus when we study this, a lot of the time it gets lost. I'm just letting you know, because I'm going to try, as I go along, to keep on inserting some of these stories. The reason I'm telling you is because you may say, how did you know that this story happened then? I'm telling you, this whole introduction was to say, I don't know that it happened then. It's my best guess. My best guess. No one does, though. No one knows exactly when these stories happened. They just know that they happened. So my best guess, it happened between this or that. And you can do with that information what you may. So they get there. Khaybar has been a source of conspiracy against Muslims for the last 6-7 years. They continue to do so. They were at that point, they took it one step too far. They started corresponding with Persia and the Roman Empire, looking for external support, military support to go after Medina. The Prophet ﷺ couldn't sit around and wait for that to happen again. No, this is too much. Khalas, we have to put an end to this. Now that he got a treaty signed with Quraysh, he needed something similar signed with Khaybar. Khaybar was not going to respond to the Prophet ﷺ's initiative the way Quraysh responded, mainly because they don't have a Kaaba inside Khaybar. Like it was the Kaaba inside Mecca that forced Quraysh's hand, where they could not fight him at the outskirts of Mecca. They couldn't. They wanted to. Oh, they wanted to, but they couldn't. It looked too bad in front of Arabia. It went against every law that was known to them. But Khaybar had no reason not to fight back, so they were not going to accept any form of sulh, any form of treaty signing. So the Prophet ﷺ had to strategically figure out a way to do this. And the way he was going to do it was by setting a siege, knowing that they can definitely outstand him. They can outweight him. They can wait they have a year of supplies on the inside. He barely has a month of supplies out there. The Muslim army would starve 11 months before the people in Khaybar had a problem altogether. So the odds were very much against him. Talking about 8 castles with high walls. Some of these castles were inside the walls of other castles. So big walls and a castle, and then behind that castle, or walls with another castle, and then behind that castle. So it's very difficult. They had never fallen before. Historically, no one had been able to penetrate these 8 castles and actually remove the people living in it. So there was this big a lot of speculation regarding whether Muhammad and the Muslims were going to be able to get anything out of this, aside from starting a war that they're going to lose. And Khaybar the people there were not naive. They had already paid off Ghatafan, paid off a tribe that has 3,000, 4,000 fighters to come and follow the Muslims, so that now the Prophet ﷺ is between 2 armies, one in front of him, one behind him. And I talked to you about how that was neutralized last week. He would go, he would set a camp, alayhi salatu wasalam. Al-Hubab ibn al-Mundhir would tell him this is too close, he needs to go back. He would wait for the next day so that they wouldn't think he's scared. And then at night, they would take maybe 100 meters back so that they could not be reached by the archers that existed inside the castle walls on the other side. It took them 15 days. It was 15 days before anything changed, by the way. 15 days was a long time. When you take an army of 1,400 people, and you're low on provision, you're low on food, you're low on drink, you're low on everything, 15 days can be, it got bad. People got hungry. Abdullah ibn Maghfal, radiallahu anhu, one of the Sahaba, he tells us a story that on one of the days, maybe 11, 12 days into it, people were getting really hungry, eating tree leaves and whatever they could find. قال فوجدت قطعة من شحم. I found a piece of fat, like meat. It's fat. It's not actually meat. It's just the fat. But it was a small piece. قال ففرحت بها أيما فرح. I was very, very happy with it. فأخذتها. So I took it and I started prepared to eat. And I was standing there. he was preparing to eat it. قال فنظرت فإذا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم واقف خلفي. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام was standing right behind me. قال يتبسم لي تبسم الغضبان. He's smiling at me, but the smile of someone who's not happy with me. This is a description that we have of him عليه الصلاة والسلام maybe a dozen times in Sunnah. Like you have at least a dozen people who said this about him. I don't know what that looks like. I can imagine what it looks like because I had a father who used to do this to me. I don't know if I know how to do it, but he would smile at you, but you would know that this is not a smile of someone who's happy with you. Arab mothers are very good at this. She smiles at you especially when you have guests at the house. She'll smile at you, but you know she's going to kill you after they leave. So you know that this is not a smile of someone who's actually enjoying. He thinks well of you. You're done after this. You're going to be in a lot of trouble. So people can do that. Smile. So the Prophet ﷺ would smile, but because he doesn't want to chastise people. He doesn't want to make them feel less about themselves. He's not trying to, but he wants them to get the message that this is wrong. Now, how he knew alayhi salatu wasalam, Abdullah ibn Maghfal tells us how the Prophet ﷺ knew my intention. I don't know. But he knew my intention, that I was intending to eat it alone. قال فذهبت فجمعت عددا من أصحابي فتقسمتها معهم. I went and I gathered a few of my buddies and we took each a piece of the shaham, of the fat. You're probably wondering, who eats that? Starving people do. That's who eats that. People who haven't eaten for the last 3 or 4 days anything at all will eat that, because you'll eat anything after you get hungry. You're used to 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day. Go 4 days without food. Right? Then this story is not a big deal anymore. So, it actually sounds good. Anything sounds good when you're starving. So Abdullah ibn Maghfal, it was not at fault of doing. He didn't do anything wrong. He just for a moment there was a little bit selfish. He's like, I caught it. It's mine. Eat it. Alayhi salatu wasalam pops up in front of him. No, that's not how you do it. You know better than that. And he did. He went and he fed someone else. The morale was coming down, so the Prophet ﷺ would call upon Amir ibn al-Akwa radiallahu anhu. He was the Hadi. He was the man would sing so that the camels would all walk together. And camels are very responsive to tune. It's actually quite fascinating. So if you have a bunch of camels walking together, if they're carrying things, you don't want them to start bumping into each other and spreading out, and some in front or some behind. You sing to them. You sing to them. They start moving to the beat. This is very known. This is known like thousands of years ago, very well known. And that's why the man is called Al-Hadi. He's the person who's responsible to sing, and the camels will all walk based onto the tune. So the Prophet ﷺ would say, خُذْ لَنَا مِنْ هَنَّاتِكَ يَا ابْنَ الْأَكْوَعِ. Give us something, let us hear something from what you... They were camping at the time, so it wasn't for the camels, but he was the guy who sung, so he had a good voice. So the Prophet ﷺ, let us hear something. So he would sing out, اللهم لولا أنت ما اهتدينا ولا تصدقنا ولا تصلينا فأنزلا سكينة علينا وثبت الأقدام إن لاقينا إن البغاة قد طغوا علينا فإن أرادوا فتنة أبينا. This is the words that they sung back when they were digging the trench. The words that were sung when they were building the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, these became iconic to the Muslims of that era. And this shi'r, this poetry, said that Hassan ibn Thabit wrote it. Some say Abdullah ibn Rawaha, some say Ka'b. I don't know exactly for sure. I actually attended a debate once between scholars of this, who wrote these, who to credit these verses of poetry to, and we don't know for sure. But it was written by one of the Prophet ﷺ's great poets, and it became iconic. It became, this is what whenever you sung that, it's like طلع البدر علينا for us, right? The kids don't even know, but when you hear this song, you know what? Yeah, it's an Islamic day. It's an Islamic day of happiness, right? So same thing goes for this. So the Prophet ﷺ was getting them to. Can you move? Just press, yeah. One more. Keep on going. There you go. Perfect. So at this point, the Prophet ﷺ starts having migraines. He would have migraines ﷺ sometimes, like he'd have a headache. And sometimes he would have migraines, and people have migraines, they're bothered by light. So he would need to go into his tent ﷺ and be alone for a little bit, because the light would bother him. If you open like the tent door, it would people have migraines. If you have migraines before, you know this. You need it to be quite dark for a while in order for it to. So he was having migraines ﷺ, and he had a usba around his head. He wrapped his head, and he's trying to relax ﷺ, and it's not working. So far, it's not working. He changed the leadership a few times for the army. He got Abu Bakr to lead, to go and try to penetrate the walls of the first castle. Didn't work out. He sent Umar, radiallahu anhu, didn't work out. He sent a number of people to try and do this, and it wasn't working out, and the morale was dropping, and he was having headaches, alayhi salatu wasalam. So you can see that it was getting he was feeling that, okay, we're running out of time, running out of provision, the morale is dropping, and it's not working. So alayhi salatu wasalam came up with a strategy, an amazing strategy. He prayed Isha with people, and he would say, and after Isha, we give a khatira, he did something different. قال لأعطين الراية غدا رجلا يحب الله ورسوله ويحبه الله ورسوله. Tomorrow, I'm going to give the banner, which is basically the flag of leadership. He's going to be the leader of the army, to a man who loves Allah and His Prophet, and whom Allah and His Prophet love him back. And he goes into his tent. And the whole army is bubbling. Everyone is talking. Who is it going to be tomorrow? يقول فما من رجل إلا ويريدها لنفسه. Everyone there was hoping that it would be him. Not because they wanted to lead, but because they wanted the description that came with that leadership. يقول عمر فما تمنيت الرياسة ولا الإمارة لنفسي يوما إلا يومها عسى أن أحظى بوصف رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. He would say, I've never actually looked forward to be in charge or to lead anything. If you actually look at Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab's history, he was never on the head of almost, like he was never leading large armies. He always kept himself back, and he was there as a supporting role. He always did that, radiallahu anhu. He didn't like to be out front. He said, but that day, I wished he would give it back to me. Because of the description that he associated with it. He said, I'm going to give it to a person who, and what a beautiful description, who loves Allah and His Prophet, and is loved by Allah and His Prophet. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Subhanallah al-Azim. There's nothing in Islam, by the way, that is even remotely close to this description. Meaning, there's nothing else that you require, hope for, or are trying to acquire in your life outside of these two descriptions. There's nothing else to Islam than this. If you have this description, then khalas, there's very little that is left for you to do. Like there's nothing, khalas, you have the description. Someone is, the Prophet ﷺ is bearing witness, is testifying that you love Allah and His Prophet. Khalas, there's no nifaq in you, you're not munafiq. And then he's testifying that Allah and His Prophet love you. And that tells you that inshallah yawm al-qiyamah you're going to be amongst the safe. You're not munafiq in dunya, you're safe yawm al-qiyamah. What else do you want? Khalas, you get that description, get up, leave, go home. Pray, do what you want. You have you're golden, you're solid. So it was and everyone was talking all night. See, the Prophet ﷺ wanted to make it, he wanted that suspense because he wanted people to think about this a bit. Many of them, obviously, throughout the night, because they're not children, right? They're not children, they're all intelligent young men like yourself. They're thinking. So if you're hearing the Prophet ﷺ saying that night, and you're like, well, I hope he gives it to me. But then yourself, well, he's probably not going to give it to me. But isn't that what I should be hoping for? Isn't that why I'm here? Why am I fighting here? Why am I outside of Medina? Isn't it because I love Allah and His Prophet and I want them to love me back? So they all start to contemplate that night. Like they used these words from him ﷺ as a way. It's like he got them all bubbling with their hearts holding on. I want to be the leader, so I have this description. But they're like, well, he can't give it to all of us. Most of us are going to be disappointed tomorrow. But I guess he's kind of reminding us of something ﷺ, that maybe you're not thinking about this right. Maybe you need to go back to your intention. So they did. Which is, in my opinion, the reason this whole thing worked out the next day. The change that happened the next day wasn't just the leader, no. It was also the qulub, the hearts had been reoriented again. Some recalibration a little bit. Okay, what are you here for? Aren't you here because you love Allah and His Prophet? Yes, I'm here. I should be very, very, very satisfied with that. That's why I left. Don't you want Allah and His Prophet to love you? Yes, then maybe do a good job and they will. So the Sahaba went back to themselves, well, maybe I don't get it tomorrow, but I can be like that. I can have that description. Right? So their intentions were all renewed. The next morning, يقول فلما صلى الفجر قال فإذا بالناس يمرون أمام رسول الله كلهم يعلي رأسه عسى أن يكون. So people start, it's like when you're a kid and you want something from your parents, so you find excuses to keep on getting out of your room to walk in front of them. Right? You go back and forth to see, hey, you want someone to notice you, you want to get something. So you keep on finding excuses why to go there and kind of, what are you doing here? Oh, nothing, I'm just looking for it. But you're just hoping that someone kind of tells you to sit down or offers you something. As a kid, I did this all the time, hoping my dad would let me stay up and watch whatever he's watching. He never did, he always let me help. But still, you still do it, right? So the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, the Prophet ﷺ prayed Fajr. He turns around and then you have this Sahabi walking by here and they're all kind of, they're all dressed well, suited up, smelling good, the lihya as well, taken care of. They have the big imama on their heads. They're ready to lead, hoping the Prophet ﷺ notices them. فَقَالْ كُلَّمَا نَظَرَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ إِلَى جِهَةٍ اشْرَأَبَّ النَّاسِ. Every time he looks in a direction, people kind of show their muscles, kind of stand there hoping that they get chosen by the Prophet ﷺ for this honor. It's not for the leadership piece, not because they want to lead an army. It's because they want the honor of having that testimony. So the Prophet ﷺ, after he looked, قال فتبسم, and he smiled. You could see but he got what he wanted out of this. He got the contemplation, reflection in their hearts. He got that change in intention. فقال أين علي? Where's Ali? فقالوا يا رسول الله به رمد. No, he's sick. Forget about Ali. He's sick. He has something wrong with his eye. He's sick. But we're here. All of us, we're all here. And they're all kind of showing off. And the Prophet is like, قال إيتوا ما به. فقال رمد في عيني. No, he has like a pink eye. He's sick. He can't do anything. You leave him. فقال إيتوني به. Bring him here. قال فعرفنا. So we kind of knew. فأتينا به رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. سيدنا علي بن أبي طالب to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. قال فيقول علي فوضع رأسي على فخذه. He brought me and he put my head on his left thigh عليه الصلاة والسلام. وأخذ يمسح على عيني يقرأ عليها. And he started to wipe upon my eye and he did ruqya. He recite whatever he was reciting from the Quran عليه الصلاة والسلام. يقول فتمنيت أن يطول الرمد ليطول أمد مسح رسول الله على عيني. And I start to wish that whatever is wrong with my eye stays wrong for a while, so I could sit there with the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام wiping my face for as long as possible. يقول فقمت فوالله ما أذكر بأي عيني كان الرمد. I got up and I couldn't remember which of my eyes was was hurting me before. برأه الله سبحانه وتعالى granted him شفاء. فقال يا علي خذ الراية واذهب واستفتح عليهم ولا تعد إلى الخلف ولا تنظر إلى من خلفك. Take this raya, ya Ali. He picked up the banner. He had what he done after Isha. He said, "I'm going to give this banner to someone. Kate, and this is." And then he took it and he stuck it in the ground and he left it. So people were looking at the banner and associating that description. So the morning of, when he brought Sayyidina Ali, he picked the banner up, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he gave it to Sayyidina Ali. فَقَالَ إِمْضِي, move forward. وَاسْتَفْتِحْ, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you the ability to succeed and to perform the task. And don't look behind. And I don't want any hesitation, or just keep on going. So Sayyidina Ali قال, of course, Ya Rasulullah. So he took the banner and he starts walking forward, and then he stops because he had a question for the Prophet ﷺ. They didn't ask. But he's like, he told me not to look back. يقول فعاد علي القهقرة. القهقرة is when you walk backwards. So he told him, the Prophet ﷺ told him, don't turn around or don't look back. So he didn't look back. He walked backwards, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, until he came close to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Ya Rasulullah, علام أقاتلهم. You can see here that there's to state my point a little bit more. Because he got them thinking about this all night. Right? Because he got them thinking about يُحِبُّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. You're doing this, someone who loves Allah and His Prophet, and Allah's Prophet love him. They had thought all night. So Ali came up with a question. He's like, why am I fighting them? What is it I'm fighting them for? You would think that would be a given at this point. But Sayyidina Ali, after he thought about this all night, he's like, I need to know exactly why are we here again? Like, what is the point of this? What are we doing here? This happens a lot in life. It doesn't matter your age or how knowledgeable you are. This will happen to you, and it'll happen to you many times. You're doing something, and then you will lose track of why you're doing it. You'll be doing something, and then you'll forget why you're doing it, and the intentions. And Iblis is very good at this. Iblis is very good. Just sitting back, he's very chill. Chill dude, very, very patient, not in a hurry. He sees you all clear, holding on to your intention, working for the sake of Allah. He doesn't like it. He's like, yeah, give him some time. Yeah. Once he looks away, I'll just push his intention just a millimeter away. He won't notice it. And then I'll go back again, then he'll get distracted a bit, and I'll push it another centimeter away. He does this for a year or two or three, and now your intentions are much farther away from you than they ever were before. You don't even remember what they are. And now you're doing the deed, and there's nothing attached to it, and there's no ajr coming from it, and then there's no barakah, and then there's no success. And the Prophet ﷺ said that night because he noticed, okay, maybe we need to renew the intentions. Maybe we need to do kind of a renewal of why we're here and kind of strengthen those hearts. So he used those beautiful terms. There's nothing in this life, wallahi. There is nothing in this life that is more valuable than you being described as someone who loves Allah and His Prophet and is loved by Allah and His Prophet. That's it. This is the pinnacle of success. This is the most beautiful thing you can ever obtain in life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all this description in dunya and for us to find it in akhirah, inshallah, waiting for us. That someone who was being he was being accused of nifaq, of hypocrisy. The way they would try to defend themselves is they would go to other people and say, أَلَا تَعْلَمُوا أَنِّي أُحِبُّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Don't you know that I love Allah? That was the way to say I wasn't a hypocrite. That in my heart, not only did I do the deeds, I love them. I love them in my heart, I love them. And I love nothing more. Right? So it's a big deal. So he got them to think about the basic goal. So Sayyidina Ali did that, and he ended up with a smart question, which is what the Prophet ﷺ was hoping. Which is why this hadith, this part of the story, is in Bukhari. Why? Because it was memorized by everybody, and it got narrated. So the stuff that gets memorized by everyone, it gets narrated. Someone will remember to narrate it to us. Things that don't, like not everyone, that's why there's a difference between the narrations in the books of hadith and narrations of seerah, because not everyone will witness everything during war. So we don't get a lot of people to narrate it to us. So you get just like a narration that's not as authentic. But it still most likely happened. It's just you don't have. But this one, in Bukhari and Muslim, where Ali would ask the Prophet ﷺ this question, يقول قاتلهم على أن يشهدوا أن لا إله إلا الله وأني رسول الله. You fight them so that they take their shahada. فإن فعلوا فقد عصموا مني دماءهم وأموالهم. If they do, then they are. You treat them as you would treat everyone around you, and we leave them because they're not Muslim. يا علي فلأن يهدي الله بك رجلا واحدا خير لك من حمر النعم. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides one person through you, O Ali, it's better for you than all the red camels. And that was like the delicacy of Arabia. If you had like a herd of red camels, you were royalty in terms of your wealth. Better for you than all the red camels in the world if you can get one person for hidayah. So he told them, alayhi salam, we're here to perform hidayah. We're here for da'wah. We want people to accept Islam. We want people to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not here because we want to kill them and destroy them. We don't want the loot that's on the other side. We don't want the money that's on the other side. Maybe that's what changed their minds a bit. Because Khaybar was so rich inside and they were so hungry on the outside. So maybe a little bit of the intentions was like, we need to get in there so we can eat again and drink and get something. So the Prophet ﷺ would use that, say, see Humur Na'am, see all those red camels on the inside? If Allah guides one person through you, that's better than you for all of that. So he recalibrated them perfectly, alayhi salatu wasalam. He got them thinking about loving Allah and His Prophet. He got them all hooked up on it. He made sure that they asked the right question. He gave them the answer, alayhi salatu wasalam. Now the whole army knew exactly why they were going. Now the nufus, the qulub, the intentions were for the sake of Allah and only the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why was he with them, alayhi salatu wasalam? These escapades, I'm telling you, it was a succession plan. Mu'tah was a succession plan, and now this was also a succession plan. He had to be able to step back and let them go. You have to figure out how you're going to lead yourselves. You have to figure out how you're going to support one another, because I'm going to be gone soon. And then if you're only used to fighting, if you're only going to fight if I'm there, if you will only be good if I'm there, if your intentions will only be good because I'm standing there, then this is not going to work because I'm not going to be there forever. So he had to sit back, alayhi salatu wasalam. Whether migraines or maybe not, I don't know. But he needed to sit back, recalibrate them, teach them how to think. All of these lessons you will find later on reflected in the battles of Qadisiyah and Yarmouk, and same lessons where the leader of the army would turn back to his people and talk to them. Why are you here? Who are you here to serve? And he would recalibrate all of their intentions and then pass the river and make it to the other side. These stories, subhanAllah, you find, like you see him teach, alayhi salatu wasalam, you see the reflection of his teachings in 10, 15 years. Exactly the exact same example. That's why I love this story, because you can see how he's thinking, alayhi salatu. Sometimes you read the story, it's more just like this would happen. No. This is all him, alayhi salatu wasalam, preparing his successors, teaching them, making sure they know. قال فمضى علي رضي الله عنه فذهب إلى الباب فقبل أن يدفعه استفتح. So before he starts pushing on the door, he actually stands there and he calls upon someone on the other side. Why? Because now he hasn't. We're here to grant you hidayah, or to have a truce, a treaty. The Prophet ﷺ would tell Ali, or يصالحوكم, or they offer you a treaty, a truce of some sort, like they sign something with you that there's no more animosity. وَيَضَعُوا سِلَاحَهُم, and they have to put down they can't bear arms anymore. Like we can have a truce with them, but they can't bear arms. I can't have them armed in there anymore. We'll protect them. They can't be armed because we don't trust them. It's been too many times. So Ali radiallahu anhu wants to speak to someone. So someone speaks. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu starts telling him, this is why I'm here, and this is what I'm offering. شهادة أن لا إله أن تهتدوا وأن تعرفوا الله وأن تعبدوا الله وحده لا شريك له أو تصالحوننا على كذا. He's doing the negotiation. So the man on the other side now, there's a difference. The attempts for the last 15 days or 16 days this is different. It's very different. The tone is different. فقال ما اسمك? The man, interestingly enough, would not ask him, tell him, no, what's your name again? فقال أنا علي. So the man would turn back to the people inside. فقال يا بني إسرائيل هزمتم والله جاءكم خبر موسى. He said, oh people of Bani Israel, today is your day. This is the prophecy of Musa alayhi salam, when he told them, one day you will do 1, 2, 3, 4 of wrong and of harm, and a man by the name of Ali will come and remove your kingdom. فقال جاءكم خبر موسى جاءكم علي. We don't know, we just know that his name is Ali. فانهزموا, and so their morale dropped. قال ففتح علي. So let me tell you how this actually occurs. It's actually a cool story. It's a story of strength and beauty, so you'll enjoy it. So after that happened, of course, the leader, the commander of the troops on the other side of the wall sees the morale drop, so he needs to do something. His name was Marhab. That was his name, the commander. His brother's name was Yasir. And they were mountains of men, huge. So Sayyidina Ali is standing there, negotiating and saying, if you don't accept, we're going to charge. This time is going to be different. And on the other side, for the first time, they're scared. They're actually in fear because the morale had dropped. So Marhab would announce for a duel. A duel how duels work? Duels before the wars would sometimes be to actually end the war. Whoever wins the duel wins the war, or for the morale to shift in one direction or the other. So for this, it was for the morale shift. It wasn't for the actual war to end. So Marhab would come out from his from the gate, And he's described by Sayyid Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, who was there at that day, describing him as a mountain of a man, a horse sitting on a horse, a huge guy. He was calling, singing out, أنا الذي سمتني أمي مرحب شاكي السلاح بطل مجرب إذا الحروب ألهبت تلهب أو إذا الحروب أقبلت تلهب. He's saying his poetry. I am the one who was called by my mother Marhab, meaning the person who welcomes everyone, like welcomes a fight. A strong weapon and a experienced hero. When the wars become thick, he turns into fire. Right? That's his poetry. So here's what we know. Sayyidina Ali, so he goes in and he's going like this. He's walking towards Marhab and he's kind of swaying back and forth. Marhab's on a horse. Sayyidina Ali was on a horse. Sayyidina Ali was a short man. He wasn't tall. He was a short man. So I don't know how short, but he was not a tall man, not like this guy. So he goes in and he's singing, أنا الذي سمتني أمي حيدرة ضرغام آجام وليث قسورة. أوفيهم بالصاع كيل السندرة أضربهم ضربا يبين الفقرة أقتل منهم 7 أو 10 فكلهم أهل فسوق فجرة. He's going and he's just swaying back and forth and he's singing. He's singing his song. This song is is actually like a 10 verse شعر. I'm the one who was called by his mother Haydara. Haydara means the lion. Sayyidah Fatima Zahra alayhi salam called her son Haydara. ضرغام آجام وليث قسورة. The ruler of the forest and a hunting lion. عبل الذراعين شديد القصرة. Very heavy arms and short in his stature. Sayyidina Ali was like that. يقولون Sayyidina Ali كان إذا أمسك بك لم تكد تتنفس. If he held you by your arms, you couldn't breathe. he was one of those guys with those big arms, radiyallahu anhu. شديد القصرة, but very very short. كليث غابات كريه المنظرة. Just like the lion of the forest, ugly looking. He's not ugly, radiyallahu anhu, but for war, for the sake of war. أوفيهم بالصاع كيل السندرة. They hit me with an arrow, I hit them with a bomb. Whatever they send my way, I send 10 times back towards them. أضربهم ضربا يبين الفقرة. I hit them, when I strike, I destroy the spinal cords. The vertebrae goes exploding. أقتل منهم 7 أو 10. I'll kill today 7 or 10 of them. فكلهم أهل فسوق فجرة. They're all fasiqeen and kafara anyways, it doesn't make a difference. This is what he's saying. And the Sahaba watched him sway his way towards Marhab that way. قال فتضاربا فضربه فقتله. Sayyidina Ali رضي الله عنه, he killed Marhab. Yasir, his brother, would come out. So Zubayr would say, Ali, هذا Ali, he's mine. Safiya would get scared. She would say, Ya Rasulullah, مر زبيرا فليعد. Call Zubayr. Come on, bring him back. No, he's not going to do this. Why? Because Zubayr, the guy is, it's not, what is this? Call Zubayr back. فقال عليه الصلاة والسلام لكل نبي حواري وحواري الزبير. Every prophet has someone who's a kindred spirit to him, is always with him. And mine is Zubayr. فسكتت صفية. She was happy with that description. فذهب زبير فتضارب. Before this, and Amr ibn al-Akwa, the guy who was singing, actually, he went to fight before Zubayr, and he was killed. He fell in front of this guy. Zubayr went in, he fought, and he won the duel. So the duel was won twice by Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Zubayr, and then they charged the door, right? And they entered. And the first battle was the big battle. Only 96 people fell this day. Like this whole war, 96 people fell. Maybe 12, 15 of the Muslims, and the rest were from Khaybar. That was the end of it. It all happened in this first battle. Everything else kind of just it was a domino effect afterwards. So the people who are describing to us Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu that day, he's fighting right up front in the army, in front of his army, and he's using obviously his shield. As he fights, and his shield would fall down, would break. So he would look around for something, and he would pick up whatever he found as close to him. So the people are standing there looking at him, and he had picked up the door, a part of the door of the castle. The door of the castle had fallen, right? And there were pieces of it, and there was a piece that was as big as that door, and he just picked it up, and he's using it. فَتَتَرَّسَ بِهِ فَقَالَ النَّاسُ يَتَتَرَّسُ بِبَابِ الْحِصْنِ. So he used it as a shield. He shielded himself with the door. So the people on the other side, like he's shielding himself with the door. قال وكنا نعلم ثقله. We knew how heavy. فكنا إذا أتينا 10 لا نرفعه. We knew that you took 10 men to carry this door because of how condensed the wood was and how many layers of wood we had into it. And قال فتترس به فخاف الناس. So Sayyidina Ali just picked it up and he's using it to fight, and people are like, he's carrying the door, so they run back in, so they retreat back into the beyond the second door walls of the castle behind it. So the first castle fell, and the rest of it is history. Within the next day, all of the walls and all the castles fell. Most of them without bloodshed, because the fear on the other side, they're like, we want a truce, and they all signed truces. In the midst of all this, a shepherd, a young slave, would come to the Prophet ﷺ. He's a man from Allahu Alam, maybe parts of Africa, slaved all his whole life, lived his whole life in slavery. He has no family, faqir, very, very poor. He takes care of some of these sheep. Once the first castle fell, he would come by to the Prophet ﷺ. يقول أنت الذي تزعم أنك نبي. You're the one who says he's a prophet. فقال نعم. فقال ما لي رجل مثلي كريه المنظر قبيح الوجه قليل المال مدفوع بالأبواب نتن الرائحة. What does a man like me, who's ugly, poor, no one speaks to, no one cares for, stinks, has no wealth, has no status, what does a man like me, why would a man like me join you? Like, what is it? What's in this for me? You talk about all this stuff. فقال إن آمنت بالله ورسوله وجاهدت في سبيله. If you accept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fight for His sake and stand, يكون لك الجنة. You get Jannah. فقال وأنا على هذه الحال. I get Jannah and I'm like this. فقال نعم. إذن يطيب ريحك ويجمل وجهك ويرفع شأنك ويقبل عليك أحبابك. And if you, yes, in that case, your face will be beautified, and your scent will be beautified, and your clothing will be beautified, and all of your loved ones will come to you. فقال فما أصنع إذا أردت أن أدخل في دينك. So what do I do? فقال أعد غنمك والتحق بهم. Send back your sheep. He didn't take the sheep, alayhi salatu. It's not. This is an amana this guy was carrying. You can't just bring the sheep to feed the people. This is their sheep. فقال وأخشى عليها ألا تدخل. What if the sheep don't go back? فقال يرسلها الله. Don't worry, just send it back in the direction of your master, and the sheep will make it to him. And so he did, and the sheep went. قال فوقف مع المسلمين فقاتل يومها فقتل. And on that day he fought and he fell and he died. فقال عليه الصلاة والسلام رأيته في الجنة ومعه 2 من الحور العين يطيبانه ويجملانه ويلبسانه وقد جمل الله وجهه وأطاب رائحته وحسن ثوبه. He said, I saw him in Jannah, and 2 of the Hur Ain are with him, giving him good new clothing, taking care, and his face was beautified, and his scent was beautified, and his clothing was beautified. قال ولم يسجد لله سجدة قط. And he had never made sujood once in his life. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this man never made sujood once. Subhanallah. Right? It's not. He didn't have enough time. He joined and he fell. He didn't have enough time to make sujood. But he came and he asked the right questions. What do I get out of this if I stand by you? And I am of such poor background. Little means in life. I don't have anything. His whole life, this poor gentleman, no opportunities, no empathy, no support. Ripped out of his family probably at some point. Never knew what freedom was. Never had a good meal. Where he was just lived a difficult life that we don't understand. So he has a good question coming to the Prophet ﷺ. What do I get out of this? Someone like me goes to Jannah. He told him, of course you go. That's what Jannah is for. People like you. People like you just have to change sides. You have to make a shift, an adjustment in your life. So he did. Radiallahu anhu. We don't know his name. I don't know his name. I tried. I don't know his name. Radiallahu anhu. He fell that day, fi sabilillah. And the Prophet ﷺ talked to us about him. And the reason we know this is because the Prophet ﷺ was in tears for him. Like he did not wish for this man to die. He wanted him to join and inshallah find a better life, and خلاص, that was his destiny. وَلَمْ يَسْجُدْ لِلَّهِ سَجْدَةً قَطَّ. A Bedouin man came to the Prophet ﷺ right before the battle of Khaybar, and he announced his Islam, and he said, I'm with you. You're going for Khaybar, I'm going with you. So after the first castle walls fell, there was some food and bounty. So he's giving it out ﷺ to the people so they can eat, and here's your nasib of lahm to eat. فَقَالَ مَا عَلَى هَذَا عَهَدْتُكَ. This is not what we agreed to. So the Prophet ﷺ wasn't sure if he's run into some people who are rude, who aren't happy with the amount that they're given. They want more. So he wasn't sure what he meant. فَقَالَ عَلَى مَا عَهَدْتَنِي. Then what was it that you agreed? فَقَالَ عَاهَدْتُكَ عَلَى سَهْمٍ يَدْخُلُهَا هُنَا. We agreed that at some point an arrow would enter right here. So I would move shaheed, so I'd be shaheed. فَقَالَ أُصْدُقِ اللَّهَ يَصْدُقْ. Be honest with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and truthful, and He'll be truthful with you. Take the meat, eat. And the man refused. This is not why I entered. I didn't enter this with you so that you can give me, you can pay me at the end or give me something. Or no, I don't want. That's not. I'm here because of what you explained, because of the message that you carry, because of the change that you're bringing, and I want to give my life for that. Anyways, the battle at the end of Khaybar, because this was a weird. Maybe the word weird is not appropriate. But because it was a unique experience, I mean, the Sahaba heard this man kind of say that, it stuck with many of them. It stuck what this Bedouin man they didn't know said. So at the end of the battle, one of the Sahaba who had witnessed it, were interested or curious, so they're looking around to see what happened. So they can't see this Bedouin man amongst the troops that are gathering at the end of the battle. So they go, and he goes and he finds them amongst the shuhada, amongst the people who had fallen, with an arrow that had entered right here. So he goes to the Prophet ﷺ, يا رسول الله ذاك الرجل قد دخل سهم ها هنا. That man, the arrow entered exactly where he said. فقال أهو is it the same guy who talked to us? فقال نعم. It's the same guy. I know him. I went after him. I was pursuing him. فقال صدق الله فصدقه الله. He was truthful to Allah, and Allah was truthful to him. He gave him what he asked for. There was this feeling at that time that Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was bringing change. He was changing the status quo. He was transforming how people were going to be living in this area. Right? He was bringing reform to politics and to finance and into social status and to every aspect of life. He was bringing religious, obviously, number one. He was bringing reform, alayhi salatu wasalam. People were now equal. Men and women both participated. Slaves and free men were all valuable in the eyes of Allah, and they all held responsibility, and they all were going to contribute, and they were all going to go to Jannah if they did well, and to Jahannam if they didn't. It brought this fresh breath of air to everyone involved. So the people in Arabia, after the treaty was signed with Quraysh, where they could listen, they could hear about Islam without fearing for their lives. They could actually say, "What is he talking about exactly? This guy's causing all of this, all of this controversy and noise. This is what he's doing. Yeah, who's with him? Oh, fulan and fulan, fulan. How does he live his life? Where does he spend his time? How much money does he have? Who are his companions?" The more questions they ask, the more intrigued they are in his character, alayhi salatu wasalam. And they go and they see standing by him all of this diverse group of Muslims, young and old, male and female, noble and slave, he's rich and poor, all standing together in salah, all of them going, fighting for the sake of Allah equally. You don't have the rich sitting back in the tents sending forward all the slaves to fight the battles, but you find his own cousin, alayhi salatu wasalam, the husband of his daughter, Fatima, right up front, fighting right up front, radiallahu anhu wa arda Sayyidina Ali. So yes, men came and said, I want to, my life has not meant anything so far. I want it to mean something. I want my life to mean something. I want to have lived a life that I can say it was a purpose to this life. I don't know what to give my life to. We all have to live for something. He told us, alayhi salam, sometimes you have to listen to him as you would listen to a philosopher or someone of deep thought. He would say, كل امرئ يغدو فبائع نفسه. Every person, every morning when they get up and they move on their lives, they move forward and they sell themselves to something. They give themselves away to something. فَمُعْتِقُهَا أَوْ مُوبِقُهَا. And either when you do that, either you grant yourself salvation if you sell it to the right, in the right market to the right one, or you send it in the wrong direction. But everyone is, you have to give your life to something. Even those who don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in any deen, they're still giving their lives to something. They're giving their lives to nafs, to hawa nafs, to the desires of the soul. Just the desires or whatever. You're giving yourself to something. You choose what you want it to be. So people, especially men when they come close to 40, they start asking themselves this question, like, what exactly is my life for? Like, does it have value, or am I just a waste of breath? Am I just eating, drinking, and sending it in one socket and sending it out the other socket until I die? And I'm a line in an obituary in some newspaper that no one reads. What does my life mean? Is there purpose to it? He asked that to himself, alayhi salam, all the time. Right? He asked it all his life, which is why he lived the way he lived. And then a moment came in his life where he really asked the question. He wanted an answer, and he got the answer. Alayhi salam, the form of Iqra bismi rabbik. He was given this answer. And these men who came to him, because I want you to understand like the background of these stories. It's not just, an extra warrior. Here, send your sheep and come fight and die. No, these are people like, I haven't, my life has been empty so far. I don't feel there's meaning to it. I want there to be meaning to it. I believe what you are teaching us, I believe the direction you're taking us gives purpose to my life. I'm willing to offer my life for it. So they did. And then we came along because they did. And now we are living our lives meaninglessly. And that's just shameful. It really is. That they saw purpose in what he brought, alayhi salatu wasalam, and they offered their lives for it so that you and I could come along. And we came along. And then the majority of us just live lives that are meaningless, that are purposeless, that are empty. When they did that so that we wouldn't have to do this, we wouldn't have to live that way. And I find that to be such an important part of understanding his life and his seerah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Khaybar falls, the treaty is signed. They have it's a long agreement. Some people were allowed to stay. Some people had to be removed because they didn't. Those who stayed, they stayed manzu'i silah. They were not allowed to bear arms. There was a certain amount of the thimar of Khaybar that they owed the Medina, the Muslims, that they would come and they would gather every year. The Prophet ﷺ would protect them for those who stayed there, and they stayed there for a very long time. They're only fully removed when they tried to assassinate Abdullah ibn Umar al-Khattab years later. Tried to kill Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, so Sayyidina al-Khattab said, "Khalas, you need to leave. This is not working." But he came up with a treaty with them, and he completely neutralized any form of threat that would ever come from that area ever again. He would marry Sayyida Safiya bintu Huyay ibn Akhtab. Huyay ibn Akhtab was one of the leaders who tried very hard during Banu Qurayza time, if you remember the battle of the trench. He is one of the men who put together the whole Confederates and the Ahzab. He put the money and put his name behind it. He died with the warriors who were killed from Banu Qurayza back at the time. His daughter Safiya was a lady who had accepted Islam, or had eternally she saw a dream when she was after the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina. She saw a dream that the moon, that the roof, she was sleeping and the roof above her was lifted, and the moon came down and sat in her room. So she tells this to her father and her uncle, and they get very upset with her. And they stop letting her leave the house, and they remove her to Khaybar because they knew what that meant, and they didn't like it. And what it meant is that the Prophet ﷺ would become her husband, which was what happened. After the battle, one of the men came and said, Ya Rasulullah, بَيْنَ النِّسَاءِ imra'atun fadila ذات شرف ونسب. Amongst the ladies is a lady of great nobility. She is the daughter of Huyay. Her name is Safiya. فناداها النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. She brought her over, and he offered her ease and where she wants to go. فقالت إني أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأنك عبده ورسوله. So the Prophet ﷺ asked permission for her to be, for him to be able to rule on her without going back to everyone. So they offered him permission. فَأَعْتَقَهَا عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ. So he granted her freedom. ثُمَّ تَزَوَّجَا. And then he married her. رضي الله عنها. And she stayed al-Mu'mineen, Sayyida Safiya, until he died alayhi salatu wasalam. And she actually served an important piece of for women that were not Muslim in Arabia for years to come. Because as someone who came from a background that was not Muslim and accepted Islam and became al-Mu'mineen and had that immunity that the mothers of believers all had, she played a very important role, and it's important at some point maybe to tell these stories and talk about her, radiallahu anha. They found in Khaybar scripture, old pieces of scripture from the Torah, after after the castles had fallen and the troops had left and fled. They found in the castle buildings, they found pieces of a Torah. So the Prophet ﷺ had ordered for all of these scriptures that was found to be gathered and to be returned back to them, to the army that was leaving. So he sent after them, saying, just send someone to come take this is your book, these are your scriptures, these are your historical documents, take them. He didn't burn them, alayhi salatu wasalam, nor did he keep them, nor did he destroy them, nor did he sell them to them. And the reason I'm telling you this is because that respect that he had, alayhi salatu wasalam, for religious beliefs and for that which people carried as sacred or holy, you didn't find at that time amongst other leaders. Like at that time, not even today, forget about that time. And you don't find that amongst leaders where they respect the religious beliefs or the sanctity of holy scripture or anything that is sacred to people. They enter, the first thing they do is they burn down the masajid and they burn the masahif and they burn the book. There was the amount of books that the Mongols threw into Dijla changed the color of the river. Like they threw so many books that we lost from our Islamic history. We have so many. We are the largest religious library. The Muslim library, largest religious library by far. The number of books that we written are there's a big drop to number 2. Even though many of the faiths came before us, we have the most. And that is after the Mongols threw into the river of Dijla almost everything that existed in the large Baghdad library, to the point where it changed, the ink of these books changed the color of the river. It turned black because of all the ink that was thrown into it. See, this is how the Prophet ﷺ would not, this is important for us to understand, that we don't treat knowledge that way. We don't treat people's sacred scripture that way. They would try at the end of this, they tried to kill him. The people who stayed still tried to kill him. So the people that he had the truce with and they signed, and they're okay, you stay, this is your lands, you live on your lands, you grow your crops, we take a certain amount of it, the rest of it is yours, you don't bear arms, if things change. So they were celebrating that the truce was, and they asked him over, alayhi salatu wasalam, a lady asked him over and her family, and she had poisoned the dhira. He used to like the arm of the sheep, alayhi salatu wasalam. She poisoned it. And just as, so he, as a Sahabi who was picking up the piece to give it to him, and he took a bite out of it, and Jibreel alayhi salam would tell the Prophet alayhi salam. So the Prophet alayhi salam would not eat and tell the brother not to eat. The brother, however, had already taken a bite and he died. Radiallahu anhu. Or at least the narrations, most of them point out that he died. And he would call upon the people who, ما وضعتي فقالت وضعنا فيها السم فقلنا إن كنت نبيا أخبرك الله وإن كنت كذابا استرحنا منك. That if you are truthful, then Allah will tell you, and then you wouldn't touch it. And if you're a liar, then you'll eat it and you'll die, and we can get rid of you. That's what she told him. And the Prophet ﷺ forgave her. But then some narrations say that when the man died, because he got very sick after he took the poison, اختص منها. The qasas had to happen because it's not fair. She killed somebody with what she did. And that's the end of the. Can we go one more? You're okay going one more? Jazakallah khair. Thank you. That's the end of the Battle of Khaybar. And of course, it meant a lot to the Muslims. It meant a lot of, it brought to them a high degree of, a lot of wealth, and it brought to them a lot of confidence. Now, Quraysh was no longer a threat. Khaybar above them is no longer a threat. They exist in an area that they're much more comfortable. They're much more comfortable. There are still problems, and I'm going to talk to you about them. The problems are the ongoing betrayals of the small tribes around Medina. All the small tribes, the tribes of maybe a few hundred people that have a treaty signed with the Prophet ﷺ, and every once in a while they take a jab. They kill a few Muslims and they steal wealth, and the Prophet ﷺ has to go back and re-sign the treaty and serve justice has to go back. But this happened a lot. I'm going to talk about this inshallah maybe in another session or two. But the build-up of Al-Hudaybiyah, Khaybar, and the correspondences with the kings, so the three things that happened: the fact that he signed the treaty with Mecca, so Hudaybiyah, we're truce with Mecca. Neutralized Khaybar. Khaybar is no longer a threat. And the fact that he sent out and he was corresponding with all these kings, and the king of Yemen, for example, accepted Islam, was now Muslim, and Najashi now was known to be Muslim, whether he was alive or dead at the time is unclear. Halaqa had made that statement that he is actually quite worried about this gentleman and did not want to fight again. After Mu'tah, they were not interested. Al-Furs had their own problems. They were all internally fighting. All of these changes that were happening and his knowledge of this led up to the reclaiming of Mecca, which is what we call as Fatah Mecca, which would occur in the 8th year of his hijrah, alayhi salatu wasalam. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it before Salah. Because of the fact that Hudaybiyah occurred and Khaybar occurred, people were much more comfortable, at least learning about Islam. So the graph of Muslim numbers skyrocketed within these 2 years, between 6 and 8. Now the agreement of Hudaybiyah, I'm going to have to remind you of this. The agreement that the Prophet ﷺ had with the people of Quraysh was a truce of 10 years. That was the agreement. A truce for 10 years. We don't bear arms against you. You don't bear arms against us. We don't prepare an army to come after you. You don't prepare an army to come after us. Anyone can enter in either alliances, no problem. Anyone who comes to us from you against your will, we'll send them back. Anyone who comes to you from us against our will, you keep. That was the agreement, right? And we don't do Umrah this year, we do Umrah the next year. This has already happened. The Umrah had already happened, and now what was left was just the agreement that they had. So it was a 10-year agreement. However, Quraysh was getting very, very anxious, and rightfully so, because when it came to the idea of alliances, it was not going in their favor. Meaning the tribes were given, okay, you can choose to be with Quraysh or choose to be with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In their minds, of course, most people are going to choose Quraysh. Quraysh is the essence of the origin story of Mecca. They are the defenders and protectors of the Kaaba. From them comes Qusay. All these stuff. They're the status quo, basically. They're the status quo. They didn't notice that people were fed up with the status quo. They didn't want the status quo anymore. This is the stupidity of dictators. Dumb leaders don't recognize how little people like them and like the legacy they have left. But they become so full of themselves, and they become so overly confident and arrogant that they don't notice that. And then they fall swiftly and quickly in an ugly way because of the illusion that they have of what legacy they've actually left behind them. This is going to happen to the leaders of Quraysh. They've been protecting Mecca and the Kaaba for many centuries at this point. So in their minds, we have done so much for the people of Arabia. Of course, most tribes are going to choose to be in our alliance, obviously, and be on our side. And then they looked at the reality, and it was ridiculous. It was the number of people who were entering Islam, the number of tribes that were going into the alliance of the Prophet ﷺ was just way too much. Because they're keeping track of everything, right? He wasn't ﷺ, he didn't need to. He knew. He knew that that's why he was smiling the whole time, right? Let's go back to that time. The reason he was so happy on the day of Hudaybiyah, the reason that not Umar ibn al-Khattab or the Sahaba, nothing could ruin his happiness, because he knew the moment he signed that treaty that's it. I got them. Why? Because now people can think freely and they can choose freely, and the stronger idea will win. And that's all you ever ask for. You don't want a Muslim I don't want Muslims who are Muslim because, astaghfirullah, may Allah forgive me. How do I say this? There's very little benefit from a Muslim that's a Muslim just because that's the status quo for his life, or his parents were Muslim. There's very little benefit of that, if any at all. Actually, sometimes there's harm. There's harm. People are forced to come to masajid who don't like coming to them and don't like being here. And therefore, they're not helpful. I don't need. It's a waste of my astaghfirullah. It's a waste of time for us. Well, it is. It's a waste of time. You imagine how many people work in masajid for the sake of Allah for free, volunteer their time? You understand how much of a waste of that time it is when you bring someone who doesn't want to be here, who doesn't believe in any of it and actually hates it? It's horrible. It's a horrible waste of our time. Bring me someone who cares. He was told, Abasa wa tawalla. When the Prophet ﷺ had someone asking him for teaching, and he looked for a moment at someone else, he just for a second, Allah said, no, the person who wants, you have to put the effort in those who actually want to learn and want to have all of this. There's no benefit from someone who's Muslim for the wrong reason, or has no real reason for being Muslim. You need it for the right reason. The Prophet ﷺ didn't want people's force. He just wanted people the option to, and once they were given the option, and they saw what the status quo was like. And they saw the reform he brought, alayhi salatu wasalam. It was an easy choice. And Quraysh got very anxious because the numbers started to go up. So they had to come up with something. They had to shake, they can't leave it. If they leave it for another 2-3 years, khalas. By the nature of conversion, all of Arabia will be Muslim, they'll be the only ones, they'll have no choice. So they rocked the boat. So we'll stop with that. I'll tell you what they did, inshallah ta'ala, next week. We'll end with that. Subhanallahi wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Jazakumullahu khairan wa barakallahu feekum.